Hey, what's up guys, TechTine here and I'm back again with a brand new video. So this is going to be my 48-hour experience with the Samsung Galaxy A15 5G. So I have a lot of things that I want to cover about this phone, but before I begin, I just want to thank you all so much for watching. If you do enjoy my videos, don't be a stranger, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also like this video to help support the channel. It means a lot to me, so thank you. Alright, with that being said, let's talk a little bit about the Galaxy A15. And I've had this phone continuously for 48 hours and I've been using it as kind of my main device to see how it stacks up to kind of the Galaxy A14 from last year. And a comparison between the A14 and the A15 is inevitable, so it's gonna happen, so make sure you're subscribed for that. So one of the main points that I want to discuss about this phone 48 hours later is the design itself. Now, first thing that struck me is that it has this kind of smooth surface with this kind of blue shade of color to it that I think looks really nice. However, because of the smoothness, and it's also a matte finish, so smudges are bound to happen, so make sure you protect it with a case, and it's very, very slippery. So a case again is highly recommended. The back also has a triple camera setup, which we will definitely cover a little bit in depth later on in the video. And the right hand side is where I would have a little bit of issues when it comes to the. So for the most part, the sides of the phone are smooth up until you get to the power button and the volume up and down placement. And the power button does, by the way, support a fingerprint sensor. But this kind of indentation and this kind of bump actually makes it a little bit harder for me to kind of press the power button specifically. And it's kind of more apparent when you turn the phone to its side. So as you can see, the kind of power button sits really, really flush with the sides of the phone, which again makes it a little bit more difficult for me to press and is just not as tactile as the volume up and down are. So the volume up and down were a little bit more manageable. Still not that good, but it's still a little bit more manageable. But when it comes to the power button and the fingerprint sensor, I don't know if I agree with the design choice. And this initially, when I first saw like the renders of the phone, I thought I would like it, but from a practical perspective, it wasn't working for me. Okay, so on the bottom of the phone, you do have a couple of things. So you do still retain a headphone jack. Thumbs up for that if you still use one. A microphone, your USB-C, which supports even faster charging, and a bottom facing speaker. And the USB-C supports fast charging up to 25 watts of wire charging, so still no wireless charging, but I can't really knock it too much for that. Overall though, as a design, it has its ups and downs. It's kind of an improvement as far as durability from the Galaxy A14 5G. However, from kind of a practical perspective, and I think it looks better than the A14, there are some things that Samsung kind of ironed out, but there are some things that are not good with it. As far as the smoothness, it's very slippery, it catches smudges, and also the power button is not really that good. It does not sit in a right place in my opinion. That's basically the essentials of the design itself. The other main point that I want to discuss, which is an important one, is the display itself. So the Samsung Galaxy A15 5G has a 6.5-inch 1080p OLED panel that has been improved tremendously from previous generation, but it does have a couple of flaws that I will discuss. But it is smaller footprint than last year's generation. So the A14 had a 6.6 versus the 6.5 here, and it is an OLED panel. It's a good panel, don't get me wrong. Samsung knows how to make panels, and believe it or not, this phone has a higher screen to body ratio versus the A14, but essentially the bezels on it are still quite there, so they're apparent. I guess if you compare it to the A54, you will see a difference, or the S23 FE, but honestly, it's not all that bad. So let me talk a little bit about the pros of this display, and I'll talk about my biggest flaw when it comes to this panel. So the pros is that you do get all the advantages of the OLED panel. First of all, it's a much better looking display than the A14, so I do have to give it that. The other thing is that you get the benefit of having a more efficient, especially when this phone is in dark mode. Now let me talk a little bit about the con that I have about the screen. So basically, while an OLED display typically is supposed to be a little bit more bright, or sometimes a lot more bright than an LCD panel, this one has a different approach. While it is bright, it has this reflective coating on it that is essentially, I don't know, when it comes to decently bright or a really bright conditions, it makes it harder for you to use the display because of this reflective coating. I don't know what's up with that. That's just something that I wanted to mention. And this phone still supports a 90 Hz refresh rate, which is, again, thumbs up. Plus, if you provide the efficiency of the OLED panel, it shouldn't be a problem, or shouldn't be as big of a hit on the battery life as it did on the A14 5G. Okay, and there are a couple of things that you can customize with the display, right? So you can choose if you want to have kind of a vivid display, a natural looking display. You can control the tone, whether you want it cool or warm. That's all up to you. You even have advanced settings to even mess with that a little bit further. So browsing the web, watching videos, and just kind of entertainment in general is, for the most part, really enjoyable on this phone, as long as that whole reflective coating doesn't mess with your experience. Again, the benefit of an OLED display is apparent, and it's there, and like I said, Samsung knows how to take care of OLED display. So I have to say that overall this is a good display. It does have its flaws though. As far as the speaker goes, it's not really that good. Here, take a listen. Phone. So on the right hand side, you do have the power button slash volume up and down, and they're very clicky, very tactile, very quality buttons overall. And as far as the bottom of the phone, you do get your USB-C 2 microphones as well as your bottom facing speaker. And we're going to take a listen to the speaker quality in a little bit. So it's a bottom facing speaker. So yeah, the speaker is not all that good. I guess this is one of the sacrifices that had to be made in order to make this phone cost around $199. But yeah, alright, so let's flip the page and talk about another main point, which is the camera system. So this time around, Samsung has blessed us with kind of a slightly better camera system than previous generation. So this time you have a 50 megapixel main sensor with a f1.8 aperture. You also have a 5 megapixel f2.2 at ultra wide and a 2 megapixel f2.4 a macro sensor. This phone is capable of shooting 1080p at 30 frames per second, nothing more, nothing less. Well, I guess you can shoot up to 720p, but yeah. Basically what I was able to dissect when it comes to this camera is the following. I will be doing a full camera review, so stay tuned for that. But taking pictures on this phone is good. It can be slow at times, and even transitioning between the main sensor and the ultra wide is a little bit slower than I would like, but it is what it is. I can be a little bit more patient, and taking pictures in some scenarios is faster. In other scenarios, it does hiccup. So all that's also something to note. However, when it comes to picture quality, it is slightly better than the previous generation. I can't really draw a big out conclusion, but I would say it's a little bit more decent than the last year's generation. The selfie camera is okay, but in order for me to draw a big conclusion, I will have to test it out a little bit more. So stay tuned for that final review on the camera. Alright, so next topic of conversation will be the performance itself, and this phone has the following specs. You do get a MediaTek Helio G99 based on a 6nm architecture. It is octa-core, and as far as your GPU, it is the Mali G57 MC2. And one of the things that they upgraded on this phone is the standard storage. So last year's generation had 64GB of storage. This time around we get a standard of 128GB. Thumbs up for that. You still retain 4GB of RAM. If you do get the unlocked version, you have the option to upgrade up to 256GB of storage and 8GB of RAM. So if you want to stretch out your budget, you can definitely do that for the extra RAM and the extra storage. This phone also supports a micro SD card slot that is up to 1TB. So that's also there for you. As far as your benchmark goes, I did do a benchmark. It gave me a score of 698 on single core and 1882 on a multi-core, which again is slightly better than the A14 5G that used a MediaTek processor. However, it's not gonna impress you in any way, shape, or form, right? This is meant for your basic tasks, your daily tasks, and gaming from time to time. It did hiccup as far as the frame rate when it came to heavy demanding games like PUBG or Call of Duty, but essentially it was able to play these games. So that doesn't mean that you can't play heavy demanding games. It's just set an expectation that it might not be the best experience if you're coming from higher end devices. Okay, so that's essentially the basic parts of the kind of performance experience 48 hours later. Again, I can't really draw out a big conclusion when it comes to this phone. And one of the things that I didn't talk about is that it does have also a 5000 milliamp hour battery. Believe it or not, it's bigger battery than the S24 and the S24 Plus. Keep that in mind. So here's my conclusion 48 hours later. Essentially, this is gonna be, I would say, the face of value smartphones in 2024. Again, I don't know what the competition has in store for us. Hopefully it can compete with this phone, because this phone does bring forth a lot of good things. It's not perfect, it does have its flaws, but again, that is to be expected in a $199 device. For the most part though, I feel like it's a really good phone 48 hours later. I do have to spend even more time with it as a daily driver to see how it will shape up in kind of later on in the year. Will it still hold out? Will more flaws come up while I'm reviewing this phone? So yeah, keep that in mind. To me, this still is a really good value for $199. I don't think you can go wrong. So you tell me what you think. If you have gotten this phone, let me know in the description what you think of it. And with that being said, stay tuned for future videos about this phone and other phones. Make sure you subscribe for that. And I will catch you guys in the next one. All right. Thank you all so much for watching.